Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I thought I would jump on the Halloween makeup bandwagon and do a fake wound tutorial. I see a lot of fake wound tutorials using scar wax and liquid latex, but not a lot using silicone, and silicone lasts a lot longer and looks a lot more realistic. So I figured I would do a tutorial for a really simple wound using 3rd degree, which is a silicone modeling agent. Like most silicone products, 3rd degree comes in 2 parts that need to be mixed together in equal portions in order for it to cure properly. And it's really important that you don't contaminate these 2 parts. So make sure you're cleaning the spatula in between, dipping in from one jar to the other, you're putting the correct lid on the jar, you're not mixing them together while they're in their individual jars. Or it will start to get clumpy and cure in the jar and won't be usable. To prepare the silicone, you're going to need a surface to mix on and a tool to mix with, and both of these should be cleaned before usage. Alcohol is really the easiest thing to use. It's what I tend to use the most, but it's also really hard to get right now, so do what you can. Once you have equal parts of both A and B scooped onto your mixing surface, you're going to mix for about a minute pretty thoroughly because you want to make sure everything is really well combined. Again, otherwise it won't cure properly. Also, I apologize for the blinding light and for things being half out of frame most of the time. Weird camera angle, did not prepare well enough. My bad. If you're working with a clear silicone, you're going to want to use a pigment to make it match whatever skin color you're working with. Make sure this is a pigment that's made for this kind of project, something skin safe and meant to be mixed with silicone. And don't use too much of it. They're very, very concentrated, and you want the silicone to remain slightly translucent. Once you have the pigment mixed in, you can use the spatula or whatever tool you're using to mix to sort of glob and drag the silicone onto your skin in the general shape of the wound that you're trying to make. You're going to want to clean off your spatula or flip it around to the clean side and then use it at an angle to sort of smooth the silicone into the skin. So blending the silicone into the skin takes a lot of patience and it's kind of a pain in the neck and it takes forever. But one of the things that makes me like using silicone to make wounds over something like liquid latex is that when you use alcohol to blend out the edges, you can actually get a fairly seamless blend. You'll never be able to get that with liquid latex. It just won't work. Also, this will stay on even when you're sweating or if you get oily, and liquid latex will start to disintegrate within a few hours. But like I said, the blending can take a really long time, and it's not really about technique. It's just about paying attention to where any of the little bumps have formed in the silicone and dipping your finger in alcohol and patting and rubbing away until you can't see the edge anymore. It may not be perfect, but do your best. Once you have blended the edges into oblivion, clean off your spatula and then use it to sort of scrape a line straight through the middle of the glob of silicone. This is obviously the opening of the cut. One of the downfalls of using silicone to make wounds this way is that if it's not cured yet, it can sort of lose its shape, so you have to keep using the spatula to shape it and kind of edit it as you go until it's fully cured. If it won't cure fast enough, you can use like a hairdryer or something to sort of speed up the process. Once the silicone is cured, take a translucent powder and just go over the whole thing. The silicone dries to a really, really shiny finish, so it's very obvious where the silicone ends and your skin begins if you don't powder it well. At this point, this is roughly what the wound should look like. Next, you're going to start coloring the wound. You can use whatever you have on hand for this: face paints, grease paints, even lipstick. I'm using alcohol activated makeup because this shit stays on through a hurricane and has a nice translucence to it, so it looks pretty real. Now the silicone is very one color because we used a single dye for it, and if you look at your skin, there's a lot of different colors in it. So I'm taking a little bit of a pink shade and stippling it on very lightly with a fluffy brush soaked in alcohol. And then I'm taking a little bit of blue because if you look at your skin, you can sort of see the veins and capillaries showing up a slightly bluey purple color, and this just adds a little bit of realism. You want to be careful not to add too much blue or too much red because it'll just look like a rash or a bruise. And that's not what we're going for with this particular look. After that, I went back in and added a little bit more pink and red tones because this is a wound, it's a laceration, so the skin's going to look a little bit irritated. You don't want to go overboard on this because that looks kind of fake or, again, like a rash. So you just want to add a little bit, just enough to make it look slightly irritated. A good tip when you're adding color to a wound is to use a very light hand. You can always add more layers, add more intensity. It's really hard to take it away once you've added it. Add a little bit more powder to make sure the wound stays matte looking and so that it looks like the colors are under the surface of the skin. On a smaller brush, take a blood red shade and put it all throughout the opening of the wound. This part you don't have to be light-handed with because you want it to look really intense. I ended up deciding to add a little bit more pink red to make it look a little bit more irritated because it was looking a little too pale for my taste. This, though, is preference, so make it look however irritated or not irritated you think looked realistic. After that, I went back in and added a little bit more blood red to make sure that stays really vibrant. Now, a real wound would have depth to it because it cuts into the skin. Obviously, that's not what this is, so we need to create the illusion of depth by taking a deep maroon or black shade and adding it into the sort of crevices and corners of the wound. Not so much in the center, just really on the edges. And finally, the blood. You can add as much or as little as you want. This blood was kind of old. I really need to get new blood, so it doesn't look as realistic as I would have liked it to. It's very dark and thick. I would recommend, if you want it to look fresher, using a brighter, thinner blood. But apply as much or as little blood as you want and then sort of manipulate it with the brush or your fingers to get it to look the way you want it to. But that's basically it. So I hope you found this video helpful and I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you'd like to see more like this, give it a thumbs up and let me know down in the comments section below. Bye!